Some people spend their entire lives performing and never realize it. They post more, talk more, explain more, yet deep inside they feel unseen. You call it confidence, but sometimes it is desperation, wearing expensive clothes and a practiced smile. Many people are not truly living anymore. They are performing strength, performing happiness, performing a version of themselves they hope the world will accept. And eventually, they become strangers to themselves. Buddhism warned about this centuries ago. The ego will do anything to avoid silence, because silence removes the mask. That is why some people keep noise around them at all times, because silence forces them to meet the person they've been avoiding. But there is a dangerous truth few are willing to hear. The moment you stop begging the world to witness your worth, your real transformation finally begins. Because peace was never found in attention, it was found in detachment. And once you discover what silence is truly trying to show you, you may realize your entire identity was built to avoid yourself. Stop renting your identity to other people. Why do compliments feel like oxygen and criticism feel like death? Because somewhere along the way you began renting your identity to other people. A kind word lifts you, a harsh opinion crushes you, and without noticing it, your inner peace starts rising and falling with voices that do not truly know you. You become like a leaf carried by every passing wind. Most people no longer know who they are in silence. They know only the version of themselves that is rewarded. The obedient version, the impressive version, the version that earns approval and avoids rejection. But the Buddha taught that anything dependent on conditions is unstable. If your worth depends on applause, your peace will disappear the moment the room grows quiet. A person who needs applause becomes a prisoner of echoes. Look closely at the modern world. It rewards performance. It teaches you to announce every plan, explain every choice, and seek permission to become yourself. But reputation lives only in the minds of others. It is a shadow, constantly changing shape. To chase it is to build your home on water. A lake that constantly asks the wind who it is will never see its own reflection clearly. This is why silence feels uncomfortable. When you stop explaining yourself, there is no audience to reassure you, no praise to numb your doubt, no distraction from the question you have been avoiding. Who am I when no one is watching? Close your eyes and imagine standing in an empty room where nobody knows your name, no titles, no followers, no history. At first you may feel fear, but stay there a little longer. Beneath that fear is something unexpected: freedom. Freedom to exist without proving, freedom to grow without announcing, freedom to become real. Ask yourself, who would you be if nobody could praise you? Are your goals truly yours or borrowed desires? What part of you still begs to be validated? In 2026, stop handing your identity to strangers. Protect your energy. Work quietly. Let your discipline become your voice. The world teaches you to be seen. Wisdom teaches you to become impossible to disturb. And the moment you no longer need to be understood by everyone, your life begins to align exactly as it is meant to. We'd love to hear your thoughts. If you're not sure what to say, just type, "My focus is everything." The social mask is eating your soul. What if the personality you protect the most is the very thing suffocating you? Many people are no longer living, they are performing. One voice for family, another for colleagues, another for strangers online. You smile when you feel empty. You say, "I'm fine," while your heart quietly asks for rest. Over time, you become so skilled at acting that even you forget which face is real. But every mask requires energy. Each time you hide your pain, suppress your truth, or pretend to be unaffected, something inside you grows tired. Not because you are weak, but because the soul was never designed to survive behind a costume. It longs to breathe in honesty. The heaviest burden is pretending to be someone peaceful. The world rewards polished appearances. It praises the person who seems confident, composed, and always in control. But appearances can deceive. A tree painted green still dies if its roots are starving underground. In the same way, a person can look calm while silently collapsing within. The Buddha understood that suffering begins the moment authenticity becomes dangerous. When you believe the real you is unacceptable, you divide yourself. One part performs for the world, another part waits in the shadows, hoping one day to be loved without disguise. And this division is exhausting. Have you ever returned home after a day of socializing and felt strangely drained? Not because you worked too hard, but because you spent hours managing impressions, monitoring your words, adjusting your emotions, protecting an image. Silence becomes healing because it asks nothing from you. Close your eyes and imagine removing every emotional mask, one by one. The mask that says you are always strong, the mask that says you need no help, the mask that smiles to avoid rejection. Notice how exposed the mind feels, then notice the relief. For the first time, there is no one to impress. Ask yourself, which version of you feels the most fake? What are you afraid people would discover about the real you? How much life is being spent maintaining appearances? In 2026, stop polishing the mask and begin nourishing the roots. Let your truth be more important than your image. Let your peace come from authenticity, not performance. The world teaches you to wear many faces. Wisdom invites you to remove them. And the moment you no longer pretend to be someone else, your soul can finally rest. 3. Silence terrifies the unhealed mind. Why do people reach for noise the moment life becomes quiet? The moment the room falls silent, many hands instinctively reach for something: a phone, a song, a conversation, a task, not because they are busy, but because they are afraid. Quiet removes the distractions that protect them from themselves. And in that stillness, unfinished pain begins to stir. Noise distracts. Silence reveals. This is why silence feels uncomfortable to the unhealed mind. It does not attack you. It simply shows you what has been waiting beneath the surface. Grief you never processed. Fears you never named. Loneliness you buried beneath productivity. The Buddha taught that suffering continues when we avoid seeing clearly what is already within us. Silence is where the buried voice finally speaks. Imagine a dark river at night. The water is calm, but you hesitate to enter because you sense something ancient moving below. Silence feels the same way. You know that if you step into it, memories may rise. Regrets may surface. Emotions you have outrun for years may finally ask to be felt. And yet, this is where healing begins. The ego fears silence because silence dismantles illusions. It strips away the stories that say, "I'm too busy to feel," or "I'm fine as long as I stay productive." Without constant stimulation, you begin to see how much of your busyness was a strategy to avoid your own heart. Have you noticed how difficult it can be to sit alone for even 1 minute? The mind immediately searches for escape. It wants movement, sound, and interruption. But if you remain still, another presence appears. Quiet, patient, and deeply honest. The part of you that has been waiting to be heard. Sit in complete silence for 1 minute. Notice what emotions arise when there is nothing left to distract you. Anxiety, sadness, restlessness. These are not your enemies. They are messages from within. Ask yourself, what am I distracting myself from each day? What feelings appear when life becomes quiet? Is my busyness hiding an emptiness I have not yet faced? In 2026, stop fearing silence. Enter it like a sacred temple. Listen to what your soul has been trying to say beneath the noise. The world teaches you to stay entertained. Wisdom teaches you to stay still. And the moment you stop running from your inner voice, everything begins to align exactly as it is meant to. 4. Your shadow is quietly running your life. What if the emotions you suppress never disappear, but quietly begin running your life? Many people believe that what they ignore will eventually fade. So they bury their anger, swallow their grief, and hide their fear beneath a calm face. But the mind does not forget what the heart has not healed. It simply sends that pain underground, where it begins shaping your decisions in silence. Unhealed anger becomes control. Unhealed rejection becomes people-pleasing. Unhealed loneliness becomes attachment. And because these patterns feel familiar, you mistake them for personality. You say, "This is just who I am." But often, it is not your true nature. It is your wounded nature trying to protect itself. What you refuse to face will eventually speak through your suffering. Imagine locking a wolf in the basement and pretending it no longer exists. You continue your life upstairs, smiling, working, and telling everyone you are fine. But each night, the house begins to shake. The noise grows louder. And you wonder why your relationships feel unstable, why your mind is restless, why peace seems just out of reach. The wolf was never your enemy. It was only asking to be seen. The Buddha did not teach suppression. He taught awareness. To observe anger without becoming it. To witness fear without obeying it. To sit beside your pain with the compassion of a wise friend. This is the path of true healing. Close your eyes and imagine meeting the version of yourself you avoid the most. The jealous part. The insecure part. The part that still feels unworthy of love. Do not argue with it. Do not judge it. Simply listen. You may discover that beneath every destructive pattern is a wounded part of you that has been waiting for understanding. Ask yourself, which emotion do I suppress most often? What wound is quietly shaping my relationships? What part of me am I still ashamed to face? In 2026, stop fighting your shadow. Bring it into the light of awareness. What is seen clearly begins to lose its power. What is accepted gently begins to heal. The world teaches you to hide your darkness. Wisdom teaches you to sit with it until it becomes your greatest teacher. And the moment you stop running from yourself, your suffering begins to loosen its grip and everything starts aligning exactly as it is meant to. We'd love to hear your thoughts. If you're not sure what to say, just type, "My focus is everything." 5. Stop explaining your growth. Why do people announce their transformation before the transformation has even begun? Because the ego wants recognition faster than discipline. It wants to be admired for the journey before it has taken a single meaningful step. It speaks of future success, future peace, future wisdom, hoping that words alone will provide the satisfaction that only practice can earn. But the Buddha taught that intention without action is like a candle that is never lit. It has potential, but it gives no light. Real growth is rarely dramatic in the beginning. It is quiet, unseen, often lonely. You wake up earlier while no one notices. You choose silence instead of argument. You resist the urge to explain yourself. You keep your promises to yourself, even when there is no audience to applaud your effort. The deepest roots grow in darkness. Consider bamboo. For years, nothing appears above the soil. To the impatient eye, it seems as though nothing is happening. But beneath the surface, a vast root system is being built. Then one day, it rises with astonishing speed. What appears sudden is actually the result of years of invisible preparation. Your inner growth follows the same law. People often mock quiet progress because they only respect what they can see. They praise the flower but ignore the seasons of unseen struggle that made it bloom. If you constantly dig up your seeds to prove they are growing, you destroy the very process you are trying to trust. Imagine planting seeds in rich soil, covering them carefully, and walking away without demanding proof. You water them, you protect them, you remain patient. This is how true transformation unfolds. Ask yourself, am I building a life or broadcasting one? What would happen if nobody saw my progress? Can I continue growing without applause? In 2026, stop explaining your healing. Stop announcing every plan. Protect your energy from the need to be validated before the results arrive. Work in silence. Let your habits become your testimony. Let your peace become your evidence. Let your transformation be so genuine that it no longer needs words. The world encourages you to speak early. Wisdom teaches you to remain still until the fruit is undeniable. And when your roots are strong enough, your growth will speak with a voice far more powerful than anything you could ever say. 6. Detachment is not coldness. Why do people confuse peace with emotional distance? They see someone calm, no longer chasing, no longer begging to be chosen, and they assume that person has become cold. But detachment is not the absence of love. It is the absence of desperation. You still care. You still love. You still show up with an open heart. But you stop clinging to outcomes. You stop trying to force people to understand you, to stay with you, or to become who you need them to be. And in that surrender, something profound begins to happen. Peace begins where control ends. Much of human suffering comes from tightening our grip around things that were never ours to control: relationships, timing, other people's opinions. We pull and pull, hoping life will obey our expectations. But the tighter we hold, the more exhausted we become. Holding sand too tightly causes it to slip through your fingers. Hold it gently, and it remains. This is the wisdom of detachment. The Buddha did not teach emotional numbness. He did not ask you to stop loving. He taught freedom from emotional dependence, the ability to love deeply without making your happiness dependent on another person's behavior. This is what mature love looks like. You can care for someone and still let them walk their own path. You can pursue a goal and still accept that timing is not yours to command. You can give your best effort and release the need to control the result. Imagine yourself holding a rope you have been pulling for years. Perhaps it is a relationship, an old wound, or a future you are trying to force into existence. Your hands are tense, your shoulders ache. Now, imagine letting go. Feel the tension leave your body. Notice how much energy was being consumed by resistance. Ask yourself, what am I forcing right now? Which attachment is creating the most suffering? Can love exist without control? In 2026, practice caring without clinging, love without possession, work without obsession, trust without fear. Detachment is not turning your heart to stone. It is freeing your heart from chains. The world teaches you to grip harder when you are afraid. Wisdom teaches you to soften your hand. And the moment you release what you cannot control, life begins to align with a quiet intelligence far greater than your own. 7. Most people fear being forgotten. Why does invisibility frighten the human ego so deeply? Because many people have quietly built their identity on being noticed. A message replied to, a post admired, a name remembered. Attention becomes proof that they matter. And when the world grows silent, they begin to wonder if they still exist at all. This is one of the most subtle forms of suffering. The ego would rather be discussed than be at peace. It would rather be seen than be free. It fears being forgotten because it confuses visibility with value. But a candle does not become brighter by screaming. The most powerful transformations often happen in complete privacy. No one applauds the seed while it is buried in darkness. No one praises the cocoon while the wings are forming. Yet, this hidden season is where life gathers its strength. The moon never asks the ocean for permission to shine. It does not beg to be noticed. It simply fulfills its nature. In the same way, spiritual power grows when you stop measuring your worth by how many people acknowledge you. Quiet people unsettle the world because they no longer depend on it emotionally. They are not trying to impress anyone. They are trying to become whole. The Buddha taught that the need to be remembered is another attachment of the mind. You want to leave an image in the memories of others, but memories fade, opinions change. The identity you build in other people's minds was never a stable home. Have you ever felt anxious when no one checks on you? Have you ever shared something not because it was meaningful, but because you wanted proof that you mattered? Imagine disappearing from everyone's expectations for 1 month, no updates, no explanations, no performance. At first, the ego may panic, but if you remain in the silence, a deeper self begins to emerge, the part of you that was never created for attention. Ask yourself, why do I need to be remembered? Does attention truly heal loneliness? What if my worth was never meant to be measured publicly? In 2026, stop chasing visibility. Let your work mature in private. Let your heart become rooted in something deeper than recognition. The world teaches you to be unforgettable. Wisdom teaches you to become inwardly complete. And when you no longer need to be seen to feel worthy, your presence becomes quietly powerful, like the moon, shining without asking anyone to look. Your constant talking weakens your energy. What if oversharing is not honesty, but unconscious insecurity? Many people speak constantly, not because they are transparent, but because they are searching for reassurance. They explain every decision, announce every plan, and reveal every emotion in the hope that someone will confirm they are on the right path. But each unnecessary word can become a quiet request for validation. And the more you depend on that validation, the weaker your inner voice becomes. Silence conserves power. Observation sharpens awareness. The Buddha taught that wise speech is not measured by how much you say, but by whether your words are necessary, truthful, and beneficial. Speech used carelessly scatters attention. It leaks energy. It pulls your mind outward when your growth requires you to turn inward. Not every seed must be exposed to sunlight before it grows. When you reveal your plans too early, you often satisfy the ego before the work is done. A few encouraging responses can create the illusion of progress. You feel rewarded without having changed, and the discipline that transformation requires begins to dissolve. An open furnace loses heat faster than a sealed one. Your mind works the same way. When you constantly explain yourself, defend your choices, or seek emotional confirmation, your energy escapes through words. But when you become more silent, that same energy gathers within you. Your thoughts become clearer. Your intuition becomes stronger. Your presence becomes steadier. Ancient monks understood this deeply. In silence, you begin to notice what talking once concealed. You hear your motives more honestly. You observe other people more clearly. And you discover that most conversations reveal far more when you say less. Spend one day speaking only when necessary. Notice how often you feel the urge to explain yourself. Notice how much of your talking is an attempt to avoid discomfort. Notice how silence changes the quality of your attention. Ask yourself, how often do I explain myself unnecessarily? What silence am I trying to escape with words? What would happen if I spoke 50% less? In 2026, protect your energy by becoming more selective with your words. Let your plans mature in private. Let your discipline replace your statements. The world encourages constant expression. Wisdom teaches quiet building. And when you stop announcing your every thought, your energy begins to gather like fire behind calm eyes, and your growth starts speaking louder than words ever could. We'd love to hear your thoughts. If you're not sure what to say, just type, "My focus is everything." 9. Loneliness is sometimes spiritual cleansing. What if isolation is not punishment, but preparation? There are seasons in life when the phone becomes silent, invitations fade away, and the people you once depended on seem far away. In those moments, the mind quickly whispers, "Something must be wrong with me." But not every lonely season is a sign of loss. Sometimes it is life softly removing distractions so you can finally hear your own heart. Many people fear solitude because they confuse absence with emptiness. When there is no one to message, no crowd to impress, and no relationship to chase, you are left with yourself. For some, this feels uncomfortable. For others, it feels unbearable. But the discomfort is not a punishment, it is an invitation. The soul grows loudest when the world becomes silent. Winter looks lifeless to the impatient eye. Trees stand empty, fields look bare. Yet deep under the soil, roots are growing stronger in silence. Your lonely seasons often work in the same way. Nothing seems to be happening on the surface, but something important is taking shape within you. The Buddha understood that solitude can become sacred when you stop fighting it. In stillness, you begin to notice how much of your suffering came from constant distraction. You see the relationships you used to chase, the habits you used to use to numb your feelings, the noise you used to avoid yourself. Now imagine sitting beside one candle while rain falls softly outside. There is nothing to prove, nothing to pursue, no one to convince, only breath, awareness, and the quiet presence of your own being. At first, loneliness may feel like an empty room, but if you stay there long enough, it becomes a temple. Ask yourself, am I truly alone, or finally present with myself? What has solitude been trying to teach me? Which distractions are blocking my inner clarity? In 2026, do not rush to fill every quiet space. Let some evenings remain empty. Let some answers come slowly. Let solitude cleanse what noise has been hiding. The world teaches you to fear being by yourself. Let solitude cleanse what noise has been hiding. The world teaches you to fear being by yourself. Wisdom teaches you that the relationship you have with yourself is the foundation of every other relationship. And when you learn to sit peacefully in your own presence, loneliness transforms into one of the greatest teachers you will ever meet. 10. Your peace threatens people addicted to chaos. Why do peaceful people often make others uncomfortable? Because peace reveals what chaos has been hiding. When you stop reacting emotionally, some people no longer know how to reach you. They were used to your anxiety, your need to explain, your habit of defending yourself. Your reactions gave them entry into your energy, but when your mind becomes calm, their influence begins to weaken. And this can disturb those who are addicted to emotional turbulence. Still, water cannot be ruled by storms. Many relationships are built not on true connection, but on unconscious patterns. One person provokes, the other reacts. One pulls away, the other chases. This cycle creates intensity, and intensity is often mistaken for love, importance, or passion. But intensity is not the same as peace. The Buddha taught that true strength is not found in controlling others, but in mastering your own mind. The moment you are no longer controlled by anger, guilt, or fear, you become inwardly free. A mountain does not argue with thunder. It does not defend itself from noise. It remains grounded, unmoved by what passes around it. Inner peace creates the same presence within you. You begin to respond instead of react. You listen without carrying every emotion. You set boundaries without hatred. You walk away without needing the final word. And people who once depended on your instability may feel disturbed by your silence. Not because you have become cold, but because you have become difficult to control. Imagine someone trying to trigger you. Their words are sharp. Their tone is demanding. In the past, your emotions would have rushed forward. But now, you remain like a quiet mountain. You hear the storm, but you do not become the storm. This is emotional mastery. Ask yourself, who becomes uncomfortable when I stop reacting? Am I unconsciously addicted to emotional chaos? What would true inner stability look like in my life? In 2026, protect your peace as if it were sacred. Refuse to give your energy to every conflict. Let your silence become a boundary. Let your calm become your power. The world teaches you to react to every disturbance. Wisdom teaches you to stay rooted while the noise passes. And when you no longer need to prove, defend, or emotionally chase, your presence becomes unshakable, like a mountain resting peacefully. Beneath the thunder. 11. Focus on yourself. The world will rearrange itself. What if chasing people is the very reason your life feels out of alignment? Many people spend their days watching the movements of others. Who called? Who ignored them? Who is succeeding faster? Who seems happier? Their attention is scattered across 100 outside concerns. And then they wonder why they feel disconnected from themselves. The mind becomes tired when it is always looking outward. The more you obsess over others, the further you move from your own path. Comparison steals energy. Seeking approval weakens intuition. Emotional chasing makes you believe that your peace depends on being chosen, understood, or admired. But the Buddha taught that suffering begins whenever you search outside yourself for what can only be found within. Alignment begins when distraction ends. A compass cannot guide a traveler who keeps turning in circles. In the same way, your inner wisdom cannot guide you if your attention is always pulled toward what everyone else is doing. You do not need more opinions, you need more stillness. When your attention comes back inward, clarity begins to rise. You notice what truly matters. Your priorities become sharper. Your decisions become quieter and more certain. And life starts to feel less like a fight and more like a natural unfolding. Your energy shapes your reality more than your words ever will. If your energy is filled with resentment, comparison, and emotional noise, your path will feel unclear. But if your energy is rooted in discipline, gratitude, and inner peace, your life begins to arrange itself around that stability. Picture yourself walking silently through a forest at dawn. There is no audience, no competition, no need to prove anything, only the sound of your own footsteps and the quiet feeling that you are exactly where you need to be. This is what it feels like to return to yourself. You stop chasing what is not meant for you. You stop forcing what is not ready. You stop comparing your timing to someone else's path. And in that stillness, what belongs to you begins to find you. Ask yourself, where is my energy leaking the most? What would my life look like without comparison? What inner calling have I ignored for too long? In 2026, focus on your own mind, your own habits, your own healing. Let others walk their path while you walk yours with quiet devotion. The world teaches you to watch everyone else. Wisdom teaches you to return home to yourself. And when you finally do, life begins to rearrange itself. Not because you forced it, but because you stopped interfering with what was always trying to align. We'd love to hear your thoughts. If you're not sure what to say, just type, "My focus is everything." Bonus: the quietest souls often become the strongest. Why do some of the most powerful people move almost unseen? Because true strength no longer needs witnesses. When a person is still trying to prove their worth, they create noise. They announce every plan, defend every choice, and search every room for recognition. But when someone has finally made peace with themselves, something beautiful happens. They become quieter, not because they have less to give, but because they no longer need applause to believe in their own value. The ego performs. Wisdom watches. A wise person understands that attention is not the same as fulfillment. Being noticed can excite the mind, but it cannot feed the soul. The soul is nourished by integrity, discipline, and the quiet satisfaction of knowing you are living in alignment with your deepest truth. The strongest flame makes the least noise. Deep oceans move quietly, while shallow waters crash loudly against rocks. In the same way, people with little inner stability often create the most noise. They react quickly, speak too much, and seek constant validation. But those who have built depth carry a different energy. Their presence is calm, their words are measured, their confidence is natural. By 2026, many people will still be chasing attention. They will keep comparing themselves, oversharing their plans, and tiring themselves trying to be seen. But a rare few will choose a different path. They will disappear inward. They will sit with their loneliness. They will face the parts of themselves they once avoided. They will build discipline in private, and when they return, they will not need to announce what has changed. Their peace will be clear. Their clarity will be unmistakable. Their energy will speak before they do. Imagine becoming so fulfilled within that silence feels richer than recognition. No urge to prove, no hunger to impress. No need to explain your worth to anyone. Just a quiet mind, a steady heart, and a life rooted in something that cannot be taken away. Ask yourself, what if silence became my greatest teacher? What would happen if I stopped proving myself forever? Am I ready to meet the person beneath the performance? In 2026, focus on yourself, protect your energy. Stay silent while your roots grow deep. The world will always reward noise, but wisdom rewards those who become impossible to disturb. And in the end, the quietest souls often become the strongest, because they learned that the greatest power is not being seen by everyone, but being at peace within yourself. Quick summary. Stop renting your identity to other people. Most people build their self-worth on praise, approval, and recognition. The more you depend on validation, the more emotionally weak you become. True peace begins when your value no longer changes because of opinions. The moment you stop seeking permission to feel worthy, inner freedom begins. The social mask is eating your soul. Many people spend years performing instead of living honestly. Constantly pretending slowly separates you from your true self. Inner peace disappears when your life becomes a performance for acceptance. Healing begins when you stop acting and start becoming real again. Silence terrifies the unhealed mind. People fear silence because silence reveals hidden emotions and wounds. Distractions keep the mind busy, so it never faces itself deeply. Stillness reveals truths the ego tries hard to avoid. The path to peace begins when you stop running from your inner world. Your shadow is quietly running your life. Suppressed pain does not disappear. It shapes your behavior silently. Unhealed emotions affect relationships, reactions, fears, and decisions. The parts of yourself you avoid often control you the most. Real transformation starts the moment you bravely face your inner darkness. Stop explaining your growth. True transformation happens quietly, without needing attention or applause. Many people talk about growth more than they actually practice it. Real discipline continues even when nobody sees your effort. Your results should speak louder than your announcements ever could. Detachment is not coldness. Detachment does not mean becoming emotionally numb or far away. It means releasing control, expectations, and unhealthy emotional dependence. Peace enters your life when you stop forcing outcomes and people. Freedom begins when love no longer comes from fear of losing. Most people fear being forgotten. Many people chase attention because they confuse visibility with worth. The ego constantly looks for proof that it matters to others, but true spiritual strength grows quietly and privately. You become powerful when your peace no longer depends on being noticed. Your constant talking weakens your energy. Oversharing often comes from insecurity, not wisdom. People who constantly explain themselves lose emotional energy. Silence increases awareness, observation, and self-control. Sometimes the strongest response is saying nothing at all. Loneliness is sometimes spiritual detox. Not every season of isolation is punishment or abandonment. Sometimes life removes distractions so you can reconnect with yourself. Solitude can strengthen clarity, discipline, and emotional independence. Growth often begins when you stop fearing your own company. Your peace threatens people, addicted to chaos. Calm people. Reveal emotional instability in others without saying a word. When you stop reacting emotionally, manipulation loses its power over you. Inner peace creates emotional strength that chaos cannot control. Mastery begins when your emotions no longer rule your actions. Focus on yourself. The world will rearrange itself. Constant comparison and obsession with others deeply drain your energy. The more attention you give yourself, the clearer your path becomes. Life aligns differently when your energy stops chasing outside approval. Inner focus creates clarity, direction, discipline, and peace at the same time. The quietest souls often become the strongest. True strength rarely needs attention, validation, or loudness. Wise people move silently because their identity is rooted within. The ego seeks witnesses, but wisdom seeks truth and peace. The strongest transformation is often unseen until it changes everything. Perhaps the greatest illusion of this modern world is believing that constant attention will heal your emptiness. The truth is, the louder the ego becomes, the further the soul moves away from peace. Buddhism teaches that suffering begins the moment you build your identity around how others see you. Real freedom starts when you no longer need applause to trust your own path. When you stop explaining yourself, stop chasing validation, and stop forcing people to understand you, something extraordinary happens inside you. Your mind becomes lighter, your spirit becomes calmer, and life slowly begins to align in silence. Zen philosophy reminds us that peace was never hidden somewhere outside of us. It was buried beneath noise, comparison, fear, and emotional attachment. The quietest people are often fighting the deepest inner battles and becoming the strongest souls because of them. As the saying goes, the quieter you become, the more you are able to hear. So move carefully through this year. Grow privately, protect your energy, let your discipline speak, let your healing speak. Let your peace speak louder than your words ever could. And if this video awakened something meaningful inside you, don't forget to like this video, share your thoughts and experiences in the comment section for more inspiring Buddhist insights on living a peaceful, powerful, and awakened life.